cholesterol is made and broken down in our liver. And so if we have liver congestion, even if we're eating what we think is quote-unquote healthfully, if that liver is clogged, that liver isn't really working optimally to make that good cholesterol, what I call the happy cholesterol, the HDL. So we want our HDL, our happy cholesterol, to be as high as possible, because if our HDL is high, it's going to bring down those other two components of cholesterol, being the LDL and the triglycerides. So we want happy cholesterol. And the way we make happy cholesterol is by having a happy liver. And the way to a happy liver is through clearing and detoxification, and the best pathway through that is through our greens. And what type of greens I really like? Parsley. These are actually herbs. Parsley, cilantro, celery. Those herbs are specific purifiers for the liver and the kidneys. The liver and the kidneys are sisters. And so when the liver is unhappy, generally the kidney will be unhappy. And when the kidney is unhappy, that means that blood pressure can be affected. So now we've got cholesterol and blood pressure going on. And so herbs that benefit one benefit the other. Those herbs are easy. I have an avocado mango cilantro salad, which is amazing. It is a crowd pleaser. Love it. My Chinese chicken and cabbage was written up in the Washington Post. It has all of the cruciferous vegetables, which are so liver purifying. Cabbage in particular has a substance called L-glutamine, and L-glutamine is a GI healer, because if our GI isn't intact, then we can't absorb and assimilate to get it to the liver. So first we've got to work on the GI to then clear the liver. So these are greens, the cruciferous, like the broccoli, the bok choy, the arugula. Love arugula.
Yes, me too.
Oh, I love it. It's very adaptable. You can wilt it, you can make it into a salad, you can throw it into soups. My green garden soup, my clients have told me, and the people that have bought my book, that it should come with a warning label because it provides so much energy. And this is just throwing just a bunch of greens that may be left in your refrigerator. I'm always about using all of your food and throwing very little away. So
me too.
Part of my recipes and adapting them is what you can use an ingredient in one recipe will be used as an ingredient in another recipe. So you're not left with this extra cabbage or bok choy or broccoli or sweet potato that will just ferment in your refrigerator, and then it goes back to the ground if you compost, which I hope you do.
Right.
So it's really important that we protect our liver, and in doing so, we're going to lower cholesterol.
Well, you have all of these recipes that are so appealing, and even though it's all greens, and I love greens, so it's not a problem for me. But even if you're a little bit, if you haven't really made that adjustment yet into your diet, you can look at these recipes, and everything about it is really tasty. It's like it's like a gourmet fresh. And I was really craving the arugula a few weeks ago, and I found out that it's an enricher. It's an enrichment, isn't it, of the blood? It does boost energy, and I was really kind of
It absolutely does, because it's so high in chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is the blood of plants, and the difference between our blood and the blood of plants is that it's almost an exact molecular structure, with the exception in the middle of the molecule, we have iron, they have magnesium, the plant. So it is a blood enricher. And so anytime we have a deep leafy green, from spinach to arugula to parsley, it's going to enrich our blood.
Great. Wonderful. And these are, it's easy things that we can just add. How much would you say, in regard to, let's look at our blood pressure, our anxieties, our kind of like our blood sugar and what kind of throws us off. How can we start to get that regulated, or at least bring that down to where it's not so, skyrocketing?
Well, it's really important to understand what we're taking in the morning. There's something called the second meal effect, which means that however we break our nighttime fast is going to affect us through the second meal of the day. And that really impacts acidity, inflammation, and blood sugar. So if we, for example, if we have a refined carbohydrate, just a white piece of toast with butter and I'm not opposed to butter, but with butter and coffee, we've basically provided a very high sugar, high glycemic index load to our system with coffee that's acidifying our system. So even if we have for lunch a wonderful piece of salmon over arugula, we're still trying to make up for what we had for breakfast. Now, if we change that around and we have, for example, quinoa, which I love, and the reason why I love quinoa, one, it's a seed, but it's considered a grain. It's a complete protein. It's gluten-free. It's high in fiber. So it has what I call the trifecta, because for those of us with insulin insensitivity, and they're saying that 1 in 4 in the United States is insulin insensitive, and they're saying by the year 2040, 1 in 4 will be diabetic, which is really scary. And 1 in 3 children born after the year 2000 is at risk for type 1 diabetes. So that is really, really scary because it's just purely economical perspective. That means that the person with diabetes is going to cost $9,000 more per year in health care costs just for that specific condition alone without any questions than anyone else. So from a health care perspective, it's really, really huge. So what I like to do in the morning is what I call the protein buddy system, that when you're breaking your fast, you've got to pair a carbohydrate with a protein so you're slowing that conversion to sugar. And that carbohydrate needs to always be a complex carb, meaning that there is fiber in there. And what I like to have is a tremendous amount of fiber because fiber, it helps cleave cholesterol in the GI tract, and it helps slow the conversion to sugar of any carbohydrate that we're consuming, because all carbs will eventually turn to sugar, but what we want is we want to slow that process down so we're not having what I call our roller coaster ride of high sugar, low sugar, high sugar, low sugar, and that's what drives us to go for the sugar. When we're having that, we're on that sugar roller coaster, that glucose roller coaster. So great options. For example, my quinoa with cinnamon apples and walnuts, my oat pancakes that you can do with a nut butter. I've got I love using goat cheese, the chèvre, which is so amazing because it's the only one of the milks, the animal milks, that is pH buffered. So again, we're looking at that acidity profile. We love goat, and goat can be in the form of that chèvre turns into like a yogurt, or you can do goat yogurt, and I love goat milk. So for example, this morning I started with my goat milk and oatmeal, and then I had some fresh watermelon. And I love, love, love watermelon because even though it's got a little bit of sweetness in there, studies have shown that watermelon actually helps manage type 2 diabetes. There's something in the watermelon that stabilizes blood sugar levels, and probably it's the fiber. So and I had some almonds in my oatmeal, so we're getting those great essential fatty acids. It's a form of protein. Fat also slows the conversion to sugar. So in the morning, it's really important to go with what I call my protein buddy system, a whole grain with some sort of protein, and the protein can be in the nut butter. I love eggs. Eggs are phenomenal, and the American Heart Association has completely shifted their position on eggs. Eggs can be heart protective, and very few individuals would be affected by regular consumption of eggs in the morning. It's a perfect protein. It's the most complete protein next to mother's milk, and if you're counting calories, which I don't, I just go by portion control, it's only 70 calories. So if you have a couple of eggs with a spinach salad, or just wilt your spinach in your eggs in the morning, that's less than a 300-calorie breakfast. You're getting the protein, you're getting your greens, you're getting your chlorophyll, you're getting your fiber from your greens, and you're going to have this perfect blood sugar to be able to take you through the balance of your day.
Or even make a little spinach omelet, which is one of my favorites.
Absolutely. Love the omelets, and those are so easy. And if you don't have a dairy sensitivity, put a little low-fat cheese in there, the mozzarella. I love Manchego, the sheep's milk cheese. I use it for everything. And or my goat. Love my goat. I'm a goat girl.
Well, it's funny. Goat milk completely grossed me out. I had to give it to my third child. Okay, he rejected breast milk, went to formula, went to all this. Finally, I resorted to goat milk because I had done my research, and it was a complete. And he loved it. It was the most disgusting smell.
a little bit of trial and error with goat milk if you are averse to the goat, but there are some really good brands now. Meyerland, I believe, is one that both is carried by Trader Joe and by Whole Foods, which is very mild, and you don't have that goat smell as soon as you open the carton, which can really take you aback. It does take some getting used to. Our family happens to love it, and it's also where you put the goat in. If you do just a little bit and it's very diluted and it's in something, it's not as pungent.
Nice to know, because that was overwhelming. But I'll eat goat cheese when I cook with it or make something with it, so that doesn't bother me. So go figure, Well,
and if you have a goat, if goat is really not your thing, then there are other alternative milks that aren't dairy-based. There's coconut milk, which is phenomenal because it's got those medium-chain triglycerides, which actually help burn calories, and it's so supportive to the thyroid. And that's really come into vogue lately. There's Coconut Bliss ice cream is unbelievable, really good and low in sugar. We've got the almond milk. We've got the rice milk, the hemp milk. So we've got and there's even oat milk. So we have a lot of options for milk substitutes that are good alternatives that provide the nutrients that we need when we're not consuming cow dairy.
And do you recommend alternatives to cow milk, even if it was like organic, or do you have a preference in regards to milk?
60% of us cannot break down the milk protein. People get hung up on, I'm lactose intolerant. Well, that's only one piece of it. That's the sugar component of it. Milk has a sugar. It also has a protein. But 60% of us are not able to break down that large protein molecule of the cow dairy. So the 40 of us that can, then what I recommend is beyond organic, that it really be pasture-fed. Because even if you have an organically raised cow, more than likely that cow is still being fed corn. Corn is going to acidify the pH, the naturally pH-balanced digestive tract of that cow. That's going to acidify, and it's going to create a less nutritious milk. Whereas if it's pasture-fed, it's going to be, one, richer in omega-3s, which is really important for us. But it's also going to be more pH balanced and more nutritious because the cow is healthier for it. And I just recently came back from France. This summer I took a sojourn to France and really researched why is it that there is such little gluten sensitivity and dairy sensitivity in France when that's all they consume. And one of the things I found out, again, is we have 4 times the gluten content in our foods, as do the French and the Europeans in general. But the way that they have bred their cattle, because even if we had an organic cow that was producing our milk, we don't know where his mother was. His mother could have been on a feedlot being fed certain things that weren't so good for it. Whereas we know in sense it's generation after generation of cows that are what I call clean and have always been pasture-fed. And so, for example, in my particular case, I have trouble with cow dairy in the United States. I went to France. I was happy as a lark having my latte every afternoon, consuming copious amounts of cheese and gluten. No issues at all.
Really?
So there's definitely a difference, yes.
And that's, we seem to be looking at ourselves as, we're struggling within our bodies. You're seeing, you go to any type of public place and you see the average American seems to be getting larger and larger and larger. And, you're seeing this even trickling down into the children and child obesity increasing. And what concerns me is, where are we going from here? Because we have all of this knowledge, and yet we're not really taking advantage of the most simple tools at our disposal because we haven't adjusted our taste buds, is what it comes down to.
Exactly. And I think knowledge can be really confusing, but the way I try to distill it down in my book is we just have to get back to nature. If we get back to things that come from the earth, that have the earth energy, that have all of the balancing properties. See, what happened is we got disconnected from nature, and we thought we could try to outsmart it by removing all the